If you don't agree to spend the rainy day fund, what do you propose to cut?
I don't know if the House has the stomach to use any more of the rainy day fund.
Draining down the rainy day fund to where I believe it's at dangerous levels.
The controller's estimate of the amount in the rainy day fund is too low.
The Senate Finance Committee has decided to use $3 billion from the state's rainy day fund for the next budget, but will the House have a change of heart and go along with this plan? Welcome back to Session 11 for an inside look at what's happening at the state capitol this week. We turn to our On Politics panel here live this morning. Christy Hoppe writes for the Dallas Morning News, and Richard Whitaker writes for the Austin Chronicle. And our Josh Hinkle also joins the panel to field your online questions. Thank you for joining us this morning. We mentioned the Senate passed the two-year budget this week. The vote was 11-4. There's a large gap between their version and the House version. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's $16 billion worth of difference, and that's quite a bit of difference. The House budget is slash and burn. The Senate budget is, I would say, cut and singe. There is not much give in either of these budgets. The House budget would literally close down half the nursing homes in Texas because of Medicaid reimbursement and put 60,000 elderly out on the street with no answer for how that happens. The Senate budget plugs that in largely through the use of the rainy day fund, $3 billion, leaving $3 billion in the fund for use in 2 more years. It's only recently that the rainy day fund has become sacrosanct. We've touched it 2 other times, tapped it, used it without any of this debate going on. So it's part of the conservative credo now that we're going to not touch the rainy day fund.
Richard, how do you see it?
Well, a lot of the discussion about the rainy day fund and whether you do or don't tap it is less about the upcoming biennium and more about 2014 to 2015 and how little will be left or how much will be left and how much we're going to need then, which goes to a deeper question of is there a real attempt during this session to try and fix the tax base in Texas? And I don't think there is. We will be back doing exactly the same things in 2 years' time, and that's a deeper problem that I don't think is being tackled now.
And that's one of the things people are kind of talking about on chat today is how much is going to be left in the rainy day fund for the next budget. And Steve Ogden says we're going to have $6 billion left, but he is estimating that there will be $12 billion in the rainy day fund for the next budget because of oil prices going up. And if anyone knows, it would be him because he's in the oil industry.
A silver lining, oil prices going up, helping the rainy day fund.
Well, that's the hope, that your tax base expands and you don't have to do anything to change any of the existing tax rates, which a lot of them have been stuck at the same rate for 20, 30 years. You look at the gas tax, you look at the sugar tax, and they haven't tracked with inflation. And that's where the core problems are. The budget hasn't tracked with inflation, and it hasn't tracked with the population growth either.
Chris?
4 years ago, the legislature decided to give everybody a tax break on their property taxes for school taxes. They passed a new business tax, and that business tax hasn't met expectations. It is every 2 years producing $5 billion less than estimated. That is a structural deficit that will continue until the legislature chooses to address it, and they realize it's there, and it's part of the reasons we're in this problem right now.
So you just see this kicking the can down the road in terms of how state government is financed?
That's how the legislature has always operated. It's a crisis management legislature. It only does something when the courts say you have to, or when it's so imperative that they must act and change.
And I think the real problem this time around isn't just how much we're going to have, it's what's going to be spent. There's talk of serious changes, for example, in public education funding, which could really destroy the budgets for some school districts. I mean, the AISD, the current model is a $94 million cut in its budget. If everything goes through in the worst possible way, we could be looking at $194 million, and that's just not tenable. That's the problem, is how you slice what remains of the pie.
And I don't think it's just, a matter if the House wants to use the rainy day fund or not, or how much the House is going to go along with what the Senate budget is. It has to get past the Senate first, be on this committee, and for us to use the rainy day fund, it takes 2/3. And, even some Democrats are against the budget as a whole. We had 3 that were voting it off of the, not voting for it on committee. So, I mean, I just think it's going to be tough for them to get it past the Senate.
Josh raises a great point. There are some Republicans against it because it uses the rainy day funds. There are some Democrats against it because it doesn't spend enough for the core values that Democrats find. That's public education, the nursing home thing that I talked about. There are a number of other huge deficits compared to what we're spending today in the social services network and health care. So it's going to have a tough job even just getting past the Senate right now.
So this thing could get uglier as we go along.
It could get special sessionary as we go along.
One of the things I thought was interesting is it seems like maybe they're set for a face-off. And when we were talking to Jim Pitts and to Steve Ogden this week, they said that neither one of them has talked to each other during the entire budget process. So I wonder if there's like communication breakdown, or if maybe they're just trying not to, you know, make it seem like they're trying to get in between each other on this.
Well, I think there's some posturing that's going on, each trying to defend their chamber's blueprint for payment. And they've pulled rabbits out of a hat and solved these problems before. But if they go into a special session in the summer, you have teachers who have time off. They're going to be at the Capitol every day. They are the hardest hit. Some estimates say tens of thousands of teachers laid off in this budget. So it's going to be just as hard to come back this summer, if not tougher. And with everybody looking at the budget and try and get something through.
And we've already lost a lot of teachers. School districts that are going through reductions of force had to already do them by, I think the date was April 16th. So we know how many people are going to be out there jobless going, look, you have to put this money back, or here's the impact on your schools, because we're all stood here. These teachers are stood right in front of you saying, please save the school system. And that's going to be a tough voice to ignore.
And we've got Governor Perry just kind of being quiet on the sidelines for now.
The governor has laid out his markers. He doesn't want to touch the rainy day fund beyond what it's already been used. And he has taken the posture, they'll work it out. I'll look at what happens when they get here on my desk. He's traveling the nation talking about issues that are important to curtail Washington and bigger picture type of instead of getting down in the muck on a budget.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate you being here this morning. Thank you. Great to hear your views, and we'll be back with more Session 11 here on KXAN after this.